Today we're here to provide an information update, information session, town hall for Indigenous faculty and staff and others who are interested on the First Peoples Gathering House project. So Eldon gave us a really great territorial land acknowledgement and important part of our project and process to do that. So thank you, Eldon. As I mentioned, we're giving you an update today on the schematic design of the First Peoples Gathering House. And then we'd like to explore through our design presentation, how our design is meeting the guiding principles and the project objectives. And we'll be seeking your feedback on that at the end of our presentation. The project stems out of long engagement that happened through the Aboriginal reconciliation process, and the project is a response to call to action 3 from the ARC report to create a ceremony space. And so that's kind of the first goal of the First Peoples Gathering House, is to provide that long-awaited ceremony space. The the First Peoples Gathering House is not just a ceremony space, but it's also a place of gathering, celebration, a chance to encourage students to pursue higher education, and be a welcoming place, and to demonstrate SFU's recognition and respect for Aboriginal peoples and their culture and contribution. The project has the project structure, just to kind of give you an idea of how everything is working. Urban Arts Architecture is prime consultant, and we're working with a number of engineers and sub-consultants who are supporting our team. And we're working with the Building Steering Committee on this project. So I'll take you through a little slide of who some of those members are, and they've introduced themselves today. We answer to campus planning, who are the project managers, and the project is answering overall to SFU executive table as kind of like the final decision makers on the process. We're engaging with local First Nations separately, and we have stakeholders as well as kind of building occupants that we've started today to engage with through a building kind of user committee group to get further information. So the building committee is made up of some of the members who you've met today, including project managers and reps involved in the project. And the committee is responsible to undertake the project process and present the project deliverables to meet the project established goals. The process that we're undertaking is what we call an intentional spiral. And this is something that our firm has developed and that we use in our projects, where we kind of start big, and as we get more and more detailed as the project goes, we're kind of getting tighter and tighter and understanding what that project will be until the completion, when it's finally kind of built and constructed and we get to celebrate the opening. So we have had engagement sessions with local nations. We're working towards additional local nation engagements. We've had 2 of them so far. We had some really important meetings at the beginning of the design process back in the fall to talk about the different spaces and what was needed in those spaces, and confirm parts of the building program. And we also had an opening and witnessing ceremony. As we go through, we're working with our consultant team and the project team and steering committee team, as well as the user group committees, to understand what is needed in this building and what is needed in the project, and kind of check back in what we've heard as we go through that process. So the ones that are outlined in red are the engagements that we're working on right now, and these are some of the engagements that we had previously in the fall. So we have another town hall meeting later this week with Indigenous students. The guiding principles and the values of this project were established through some really important meetings that we had when we were working on the vision of the project prior to this design phase being started. So these happened when we were going through the site selection process and a visioning process last year. And we heard really importantly from students how important it was to develop these set of values that would guide the project through the process as the design was developed. So a lot of these came out of those discussions with students. And we use them to establish how we work and communicate with people through the process. The guiding principles are what we're focusing on today as we share with you the updated schematic design. And in particular, we would like to have a chance to talk to you about how we're meeting these guiding principles as we work through the design process. These were developed again through that early visioning process, honoring host nations while welcoming all, promoting wayfinding, celebrating culture, providing connection to land, promoting health and well-being, providing space for ceremony, honoring tradition with sustainable practices, learning environments to promote academic success, and being a student-centered project. Some of the design concepts that we've developed came out of really important discussions we had with local nations and really established for us an understanding of how we can honor those local nations, what it means to build a longhouse, what the longhouse means, and also what it means to orient the building in relation either to the cardinal directions or to the campus access. And what came out of this is the importance of understanding a student's journey as they walk in two worlds, as they pursue advanced education and also come to know better their Indigenous culture, whether it's something that they're kind of learning and revitalizing or strengthening as they pursue their education, or something that they're bringing with them and teaching others. So this process of walking in two worlds has really been an inspiration for our design. The student town hall that we had at the beginning of this year in January also provided really important a framework for understanding how to make sure students feel respected, engaged, and involved. And we're now providing monthly updates to students, as well as are getting students involved in the user group committees and have it reiterated from students in those discussions the importance of providing safe, dedicated space for Indigenous people in this building and in this project. The learning environments in the project include the Great Hall, elder space, a multi-generational lounge, wellness space, servery prep kitchen, and a multi-purpose maker classroom, as well as a seminar classroom. So we'll share with you throughout our design what some of these spaces are, how they're developing and where they're located in the building. As I mentioned earlier, the concept of walking in two worlds has really been a foundation for our design and understanding what it means to be on a mountaintop and how we can respond to the place name that references the stand of arbutus trees and how important that was to local nations, and what it means to respond to the campus and the importance of the master plan that was set up by Massey Erickson and how we can juxtapose it with an Indigenous worldview. So these are some renderings of the building from the entry, from the entry of the project, looking as you go down the ceremonial walkway towards the quadrangle, and from the Trotte Observatory back at the building. And the design that you just saw included kind of two massings. One is the Great Hall massing, and the other that we're representing as blue, we're calling a lower bar for now. And the massing of the Great Hall is intended to represent a Coast Salish longhouse, which is understood to be a single shed roof, but we're kind of juxtaposing and allowing this single shed to be seen from many different sides. So we've taken that and provided a catenary roof where you can can see this view, the single shed from many different angles. We're using this expressive roof form to also represent the mountaintop and to reference the mountaintop through our design. These two different massing forms are intended to be that understanding of the two worlds that might be part of that student experience. And the reference to Coast Salish form is an opportunity to honor the host nations, in particular those discussions that we had through this design process. I'll pass it over to Megan.
Thanks, Uri. Promoting wayfinding was another key guiding principle, and we wanted to do that from both the campus level as well as in the building itself. So in terms of the campus connection being highly visible and with a prominent entry from the ceremonial walkway, as well as acknowledging that future campus development may emphasize the north-south connection and making that route prominent as well. And then from within the building, having clear axial geometries with a hierarchy of circulation, so that one can be able to connect to the outside with views to the outside, to the north, south, east, and west, to be able to orient oneself within the building and have a clear hierarchy of circulating around the space. We're looking at celebrating culture and having the materials be a way to do that, to tie to tradition and history, as well as acknowledge, as we mentioned, the form and aesthetics that are developed as part of the Erickson Massey plan. So looking at walking in two worlds, having material tell sort of stories from different perspectives is also a consideration as we look at these. So bringing cedar into the Great Hall and having that tradition. They're looking at the opportunity to use board form concrete as a way to reference the use of concrete on campus, as well as bring the natural wood elements, considering exposed aggregate flooring to root and connect to the ground and reference shorelines and that sort of geometry and bring the sense of place into those ceremonial spaces where concrete may be used. Referencing the mountaintop and the rocks, and using a cementitious panel to bring that anchoring palette, the potential for weathering steel or copper to reference the arbutus bark, a really important material and feature of the place. And then again, that vertical articulation, which is tying back to the Massey Erickson legacy. Glazing frit may be used to A, control sunlight, but B, reference the sky and be sort of an ephemeral quality and linked to, the adjacency to the Detroit Observatory and have that focus on the sky as well as the earth with our selection of materials. And the Great Hall is being the heart of the project is an important opportunity to celebrate culture. We're looking at bringing the practice of weaving in and referencing it in the ceiling, and there's a number of ways that we're exploring to do that. The 5-strand weaving shown to the left was a significant practice with using cedar to make hats, and the Great Hall itself has 5 bays in either direction, so brings that layer of weaving those 5 strands together. Also pictured are the woven blankets as part of the SFU blankets as well. So we'll continue to explore layering in those significant cultural elements in this special ceremony space. The Great Hall, as I mentioned, significant space for ceremony. The entry is directly east and with access to the exterior on the west. There's a double-sided fireplace which allows for access for ceremonies both indoor and outdoor, And the layout supports a variety of types of gathering, as shown a celebration or dance, as well as a conference or lecture layout, or a great feast with a number of tables. Bench seating on the side can support fixed seating, as well as having natural air circulate through, which we'll show a little bit later. So here's a view of the inside of the ceremony, looking at opportunities to have panels that honor our host nations on either side of the fireplace, that double-sided fireplace as mentioned, and that connection to the exterior looking west, and then the roof, that dynamic form that Uri was describing earlier, as well as the opportunity to weave in and bring those cultural references. I'll pass it on to Jake to walk you through the next guiding principles.
So looking at this notion of providing connection to land and thinking about how the longhouses were situated beforehand, but also thinking about the mountaintop location. So obviously the roof is a very important driving factor in terms of how we're positioning the programming within the building. So you'll notice on the front side to the ceremonial axis, there's obviously a connection to the north, and then to the carving court, the maker space is off to the right-hand side, which actually complements the outdoor patio. And then we have a connection to the south with the seminar room, but also connecting to the orchard to the immediate west. Next slide. Again, what Megan was talking about, the notion of water and circulation, so trying to utilize the roof to its benefit and maximizing the drainage surface runoff that would actually tie into the apple orchard or the cherry orchard to the bottom, and also the passivity of the wind going from the north to the south, and maximizing the form of the building to our benefit. Next slide. And then when you look down in plan in terms of some of the material qualities we're talking about, you see the entry plaza to the northeast, the front porch to the ceremonial walkway, the ceremonial gathering and the learning carving court off to the west, and then the outdoor gathering space off to the left-hand side to the cherry orchard. Next slide. When you look at it in section, looking at the gathering spaces, the possible gathering circle, the carving space, and place for arts and crafts, you start to see there's a larger relationship to the Great Hall, and understanding that to the far northwest is the elder gathering spot that would lead directly into the Great Hall. So it's along the ceremonial axis. We have a seminar room to the top left-hand corner that's looking to the south and maximizing the solar gain from that perspective. And to the southwest, we have the gathering maker space that actually is complementary to the carving court on the outside, the Great Hall. Next slide. And here is another perspective up from the south, looking from the cherry orchard to the home away from home, the multi-generational lounge, which is a more informal gathering spot for students just to lounge, congregate in the kitchen, and then obviously have outdoor semi-private space at the lower level of the Great Hall. Next slide. Go ahead, Megan.
I'll just walk you through sort of the overall floor plan. So as Ori mentioned, entry from the ceremonial walkway with the atrium space leading directly to the Great Hall. And on the east side of the building, there's connection to services to be the most efficient location for that, supported by the elders room with directly across from the east entrance, and then 2 office spaces for the programming and visiting scholar offices. Then there's the secondary exit, seminar room as the sort of anchor to the end of the atrium space, with access to the exterior and views to both the south and the east. And then that secondary corridor with access to the exterior on both sides. What we're calling the lower bar provides service space, so the servery, prep kitchen, janitors, and garbage area. And then if you guys have seen the plan, you'll notice a modification here. We've made a sort of flow-through bathroom area so that people can enter from either side to make it a really safe space, gender-inclusive washroom. and then the chair storage and dressing room as well. And at the end of this, another sort of the destination at the end of this end is it's anchored by the multi-purpose makerspace, as Jake mentioned, connecting to the outdoor carving court. Then looking at the lower floor, because of the topography on this site, this is at grade with the cherry orchard below. So great indoor-outdoor connectivity is possible here with gathering spaces that take advantage of the south and west light. So on this floor, there's the multi-generational gathering lounge. So really the place to come together, that safe away space to meet as community and have a home away from home feeling. So not immediately prominent or on display, but sort of tucked away in a space that is really, the students can feel at home and make their own. And that's supported on the side by a wellness room. So a place that would support smudging and gathering of small groups or individual respite. And there's also the family room for nursing and feeding, and as well as end of trip facilities for cyclists, and just another washroom there as well as services. Looking at the roof plan, the lower bar portion has a green roof area with some mechanical space. And then taking advantage of the southern exposure, there's a potential for photovoltaics in the area that we're pointing to here.
Just to highlight some of the landscape elements as part of the site on this, at the entry that we're calling the entry plaza, there's covered outdoor area. To the north of the entry is a kind of a space that highlights our design response of being in two worlds. So from the ceremonial walkway, providing a really natural landscaped area that you can meander through, but that also responds to the Massey Erickson master plan, which talks about bringing nature right up to the buildings. And so that's providing that opportunity. As Megan and Jake had highlighted, there's a carving court outside the maker classroom in the Great Hall on the upper floor. And then to the south, we're looking at a service area, as well as potentially having an outdoor gathering place, a place for gardens, for teaching, and potentially an outdoor kitchen. And then on the lower floor, which you can't see here because we're looking at the roof, is that connection from the multi-generational kind of multi-use lounge on the lower level to the south and east that connects to this lower cherry orchard on the site. So again, here's that view that we shared at the beginning. Just now that you've had a chance to see the floor plans. Again, this is the entry off the ceremonial walkway, this entry plaza. You can see the quadrangle in the distance, and then this area that's bringing nature right up to the project. A view from the observatory plaza looking back towards the east at the building, the Great Hall, and that indoor-outdoor fireplace, providing a bit of sun protection to our outdoor carving court, and the lower level connecting to the cherry orchard for the multi-use, multi-generational lounge. Again, you can see that view a little bit better from looking up from the cherry orchard towards the building, connection to the plaza, and you can see Strand Hall in the background. A view looking from the southeast of the project, and this is that south entry looking into the seminar classroom and a chance for medicinal gardens, for outdoor seating, or potentially that outdoor kind of kitchen teaching learning space. You can see here this, what we're calling the lower bar, has that vertical articulation on the facade, and this is something that we're exploring now as we move further into design development, what the elevations of these lower bars will end up looking like and what the material will be. But you can see the green roof kind of popping out over the roof of the lower bar, and then the expressive form of the Great Hall ceiling or roof structure. Looking through the lobby from that seminar classroom at the end of the lobby back towards the entry and into the kind of the side entry of the Great Hall. This is where offices, the secondary entry, and then access to the elders room on access with the kind of east entry to the Great Hall would be. And then some references and precedents from landscape that demonstrate their idea of things like what the look and feel of some of the planting on the green roof would look like, as well as the feeling that they're trying to evoke in the exterior spaces and the kind of the naturalization of this portion of campus that they're exploring through their landscape design on the project. So to give you an understanding of where we are in the process, we're presenting today our schematic design, and we're starting to work towards design development. After that, we'll do construction drawings that will be used to build the project. The construction of the project is intended to start the winter of next year. And the opening of the building is intended to be in fall of 2023. So we're still early on in the project, and it's been an honor for our team to be working on this project, to be able to present to you an update today. Before we kind of get into a discussion, I'm just going to share with you some places where you can get further information. So the ARC report is available on the SFU website, the SFU's reconciliation website, as well as you can get further information, and then those monthly updates are being published on the SFU First Peoples Gathering House project information site. So without further ado, let's go back and have a bit of a kind of roundtable discussion. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and to listen to our update on the project.